Alright guys, in this video we're going to take a look at JSX. So JSX is a JavaScript extension that allows us to basically put HTML inside of our JavaScript. Now this isn't really what's going on under the hood, this is just syntactic sugar, and I'm going to give you an example of how this looks in actual JavaScript, and you'll see why we use JSX. But when we do JSX, there's a couple rules that we have to follow. So one is we can't use the class attribute. Instead, we have to use class name. Okay, we also can't use the for attribute. Sometimes when you create a label to, let's say, an input or, in a form, you would use for equals something. So let's say for name, and let's go like that. And if we save that, it's still going to render out the label. But if I open up my Chrome tools and we look in the console, it's going to give us a warning that says invalid DOM property for, did you mean HTML4? Okay, HTML4 is what you want to use if you want to use a for attribute. So you would switch this with HTML4 and save, and that error will go away. Okay, I don't want to keep the label. I just wanted to give you that example. Another thing is if you want to use something that doesn't have an ending tag, like let's say an input, like if we go like that, in HTML5 you can do without the slash, but in JSX you want to keep that slash. You can see we already have some errors here. If I save, it's actually going to break and it's not going to compile properly. Okay, so if you have an input, you want to keep the slash. If you have like a line break, so you don't want to do like that, you want to put the slash in there. If I were to do that, then it's going to break again. Okay, another important thing to remember is, let me get rid of that, is that when you return, you need to return a single parent element. Okay, you can put as much HTML or JSX inside here, but you can't return more than one thing. So if I put another div down here and say hello, and I try to save that, we're going to get an error. It says adjacent JSX elements must be wrapped in an enclosing tag. Now I could wrap a div around all this stuff and that's fine because I would still be returning just one element. Okay, so you have to remember that as well. So let's go ahead and put that back. And now what I want to do is just give you an example of what this looks like in JavaScript, because again, this is just syntactic sugar. It's something that's put on top of the actual JavaScript that's running here. So I'm going to comment out this return, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say return, and we're going to take React, which we brought in up here, and it has a method called create element, which does just that. It creates an element. We want to create a div. Okay, so we want to create a div. The next parameter is going to be any attributes that it has, and in this case it has a class name of app. Okay, and then the next parameter is going to be what we want inside of the div, which in this case is an h1. Now since it's an h1, it's another element, so again we have to do react.create element, and we want to create an h1. It doesn't have any attributes, so we'll put null for this parameter, and then what we want inside it is a string of the app component. Okay, so if I go ahead and save this, you'll see it renders out the same thing. If I look at my React Dev Tools down here, you'll see that it gives us the app component with the div with the class name of app and then the h1. So this is the equivalent of this in JavaScript without JSX. Now it might not look too bad right now, but imagine if we had tons of nested elements with different attributes, with expressions and stuff like that. This would be an absolute mess to work with, and no one would use React. So you definitely want to use JSX, even though it's not technically mandatory. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this. I just wanted to just kind of show you how that works. And we'll uncomment this and save, and you'll see we get the same thing. If we look down in our React tools, same thing. Okay, and in our React tools, I mean, there's not much to see right now because all we have is our app component, but when we create all of our components, we'll see all those in here. We can see props and state and stuff like that, which we don't have any of now, so there's nothing that interesting to look at down here yet. All right, so in the next video, what I want to do is take a look at how we can make this dynamic, and we can include variables and conditionals and stuff like that by using expressions in JSX.